Welcome, everyone. I am Adesewa Josh, and this is Africa Matters. Nigeria has a new president, and he's already announced a major shift in domestic policy. But what are his priorities now, and how is his foreign policy likely to take shape? And we'll tell you about a timeless business tradition among the Nigerian community that's passing down much-needed business skills. Plus, have you heard about surfing in Lagos? Probably not, but we'll bring you that story if you stick around. The Nigerian government has officially removed its controversial fuel subsidy nearly 5 decades after it was introduced. It was a social safety net aimed at cushioning the poor against rising global oil prices. Instead, it made the country's rich elites even richer. Economists have repeatedly warned that the policy is unsustainable in the long term, but successive governments that have tried to end it were vehemently opposed by civil society groups, activists, and even ordinary Nigerians. So, when Nigeria's newly elected president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, declared that fuel will no longer be subsidized on his first day on the job, it sent a ripple effect across the country. Hilary Noruka tells us more from Lagos.
Fuel queues, a familiar problem back on Nigerian roads, just hours after the swearing-in of a new president. And this time around, it has come with varying and high prices in a country where the government regulates the pump price of petrol.
Provision is there for fuel subsidy. The fuel subsidy is gone.
President Bola Tinubu's inauguration speech caused panic and hiked prices to more than double the approved price. On top of that, petrol has become scarce.
Right now, I'm supposed to be at work. See me, I'm here, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to get fuel. They have been checking their fuel for like 5 minutes. Maybe there's still fuel there. See now, this is past 11. I've been here 2 a.m. This is past 11.
The situation is made worse by Nigeria's poor power supply. Many businesses depend on generators to run. Olalekan Folorunsho owns a barber shop.
So that we go, we don't see fuel, and we have to. Our customers have to come and we have to give them haircuts. So we don't have choice. We have to look for it. Even if black market, we just have to buy fuel.
The Nigerian government has tried unsuccessfully to remove subsidies many times in the past. One such attempt led to nationwide protest in 2012. Many Nigerians now agree subsidies have to go, but say the timing is wrong.
You can see the whole Nigeria is walking on the street. The whole filling station, there is no fuel. It's just like we are going back to the darkness days where we need to sleep in the filling station because of hardship.
My problem is the calculation, the timing is wrong. My brother, you don't remove fuel subsidy like that.
Subsidies cost Nigeria $10 billion in 2022, and $7.5 billion was budgeted in the first half of the year. But funding it has become unsustainable, with Nigeria projected to spend 96% of its revenue this year on debt servicing.
High petrol prices are expected to have a ripple effect on the price of transport, food, and basic goods. Economists forecast that the removal of subsidies could quadruple petrol prices, leading to higher inflation in a country already grappling with low economic growth. But the reality is that subsidies are a cost Nigeria can no longer afford. Hilary Noruka, Africa Matters, Lagos.
Nigerians are already spending more than half of their income on food and transport, so there's hardly any money left to accommodate higher fuel prices. So many are hoping President Tinubu will tackle this and other urgent issues in his inbox as he takes office, including reducing insecurity on several front lines, which include a kidnapping for ransom crisis, battling militant groups in parts of the north, and a separatist insurgency in the southeast of the country. The country's debt management office says Nigeria spends 96% of its revenue servicing debt. President Tinubu's manifesto states that he plans to ramp up local manufacturing and invest in agriculture to generate more revenue. The World Bank says 4 out of 10 Nigerians live on less than $2 a day and don't have access to basic infrastructure such as electricity, safe drinking water, and improved sanitation. Over 75% of the population in Nigeria is under the age of 35, that they don't have access to capital, and many university graduates often fail to find jobs. Now let's hear more from Liberos Oshoma, a lawyer and public affairs analyst. He joins me from Lagos, Nigeria. Good to have you on the program again, and thank you for making time. Is this the end of fuel subsidy in Nigeria, or are we likely to see the Tinubu administration buckle under pressure, just like past administrations?
Yeah, I do not really know what to say because from president, previous administration had come at some point to say they've yanked off subsidy, and the moment prices dropped at the international market, we see, you know, some form of a subsidy. The NMPC at some point now called it under recovery instead of a subsidy. But we all agree, including the economists and the international communities also agree that it is not sustainable. If you remember from Obasanjo's era between 1999 and 2007, subsidy payment was about 870 something billion. In Yar'Adua's administration from 2007 to 2010, it came down to about 700 and something billion. And then
Dollars.
jumped up on that.
Let's not forget.
Yeah, Naira.
Okay.
No, Naira.
Oh, good.
Yes, so, yes, it's in Naira. And so under Goodluck Jonathan, it jumped up to about 3.9 trillion Naira, you know, for that per annum. And then under President Buhari from 2015, it skyrocketed to about 11 trillion Naira. And, you know, the question now is which should come first? There are no infrastructure, and the government has said we are borrowing to pay subsidy. The money that's supposed to be used for infrastructure is now being channeled to subsidize petroleum products. While the people have said, why don't you fix the refinery so that we do not have to consistently borrow to subsidize? So, but which should come first? There's no funds to fix the refinery. The money that is meant to fix the refineries, in some cases, goes into private pockets. And then the rest, you know, is used for subsidy. So the government has said, well, we can no longer sustain this. But another thing that is very instructive is that it is not the Tinubu's administration that removed subsidy.
Absolutely
not.
not.
What is Tinubu's administration? What the Tinubu's administration simply said is that the budget they inherited, that there is no appropriation for subsidy. So you cannot remove what is not there. When the Petroleum Industry Act was passed, the civil society were there. When this budget was debated, the civil society, the labor organizations were all there. None of them raised eyebrow about subsidy removal from June. You know, so now that it's a new administration, all of the presidential candidates, all of the major presidential candidates campaigned that they were going to remove it from the first day in office.
What do you expect to see in the first 100 days of the new administration? You rightly pointed at the fact that, you know, it was a matter of what do we do first? What issues do we fix first? Because there seemed to be a lot happening all at the same time.
Yeah, I think what everybody's expecting is to see that the government, this issue of subsidy is fixed, then the economic policy, the parity between the Naira and the dollar, that should be taken care of immediately. And that will stimulate the economy and encourage, you know, a lot of people to begin to invest. Once you do that and there is investment, there's certainty in the economic policies, jobs are going to be created. And once jobs are created, that will also take up a lot of people who are currently engaged in insecurity. So all of this has a multiplying effect. Once the country, the new administration gets its economic policies right, and that will stimulate investment, and investment will in turn put money in the pocket of the government to provide infrastructure like power that we complain about, also to take a lot of people off the street, and that will, you know, in a long way, solve insecurity challenges. But if they continue with this attitude of borrowing to subsidize consumption, then the hunger will certainly continue.
In the meantime,
we can no longer sustain borrowing.
Right. In the meantime, what should the people do? Are there any social safety net policies that the government should implement while the dividends of removing subsidies and injecting the funds back into the economy takes effect?
I think Nigerians have, over time, you know, consistently been their own enemy. you find out that there's so much pressure on the federal government, and then we leave out the state government. What the people should do now is to ensure that modern transport system are put in place by both the state and the local government to ensure that movement of goods and services, is seamless, and also to ensure that people unnecessarily are not bearing the burden of this subsidy removal, because almost everybody drives in Nigeria, and then the transport system is rickety and in the hands of private investors who are not organized also. So government needs to also organize the transport system. And then areas where the riverine areas also, government needs to look at how to ensure that, water transport is massively, opened up and keyed into. Once you do that, Nigerians, we have also agreed, Nigerians also need to understand that you need to break up to make up. For government to sustain, dividends, you need to break that cycle of consistently relying on making money from government, where everybody rely on, believing that once you get appointment from government, that will be the end of poverty for you. But state government needs to be up and doing in this administration if things must work.
Let's zoom out a little bit. How would you describe Nigeria's foreign policy? Just looking at Nigeria in the region in the last decade, and what must change under the Tinubu administration?
I think President Barack Obama had said that the solution to African problem lies in Africa. I think now is the time for Nigerian foreign policy to be African-centered. This idea of rushing to Europe, and America for foreign aid, this idea of pandering towards the dictate of economists from the World Bank and who know more of the hotels in Africa than the interiors of Africa should stop. So our foreign policy should be centered, around Africa. Yeah, Nigeria has acted as big brother in trying to keep peace in Africa, but unfortunately, Nigeria, the big brother that is trying to keep peace, is fighting wars in all fronts, like your intro. You have Boko Haram in the up north. You have militancy in the south of Nigeria. You have banditry in the north central, and then you have a separationist group in the northeast. So on all fronts, the big brother that once fought to keep peace in Ecomog and in Liberia is fighting a war in all fronts. And so that also should be one of the focal points of how to look inward and ensure that African is galvanized to protect Africa.
Right. Thank you so much, Liberals Oshoma, a lawyer and public affairs analyst. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on Africa Matters. Welcome back. About 1 in 3 Nigerians have no jobs, according to official data, making it one of the highest jobless rates in the world. The country is feeling the pressure of a growing population, high inflation, and poverty rates in some parts of the country. But the Igbos, one of the 3 major ethnic groups in Nigeria, are passing on a traditional business model to help young people earn a living. Palom David tells us more.
Chris Osakwe has been a furniture maker for more than 2 decades. After perfecting his craft and building a large customer base, he is now transferring his knowledge to younger men. He is doing this with an unpaid apprenticeship system used by the Igbos, one of the largest ethnic groups in southeastern Nigeria.
Most of those ones we train, they would have been roaming about the street, not doing nothing. But we took them, trained them, settled them. And then they have workshop on that. Many have workshop on that, and many, through that, they have trained many other people. And they are still training. And we too, we are still training. So we are helping seriously in taking away unemployment from the streets.
The Igbo apprenticeship system allows young boys to learn business methods from a professional who is usually a relative. They train for an average of 4 to 8 years. At the end of the apprenticeship period, the trainer gives his apprentice some cash and also support to start their own business.
I'm learning furniture work. I signed an agreement for 4 years and I have 1 year to go. I finish next year in August. I'll open a shop, buy an industrial machine, start collecting work, get my boys, start selling chairs, and open a company.
According to the Igbo apprenticeship model, Osakwe is tagged a master because he has trained over 100 boys and is still training more. He says this business model dates back to their forefathers.
It's a rooted culture. It's not borrowed. It's something that one cannot even explain that this is how we started it. No. It's just that it's in us.
The Igbos have empowered themselves over the years through this method and spurred economic growth in their region.
I have children in school and I'm able to raise money with the skills I have. I am currently building a house and I received money from learning this work.
Nigeria's population is over 200 million. Unemployed youths make up more than half of these numbers, with unemployment rates projected to rise over 40% in 2023. Experts have said encouraging the cycle of entrepreneurship is a key way to engage youth in order to curtail crime in the country.
Is there a case for the government focusing on developing a system-wide model where young Nigerians can spend more time learning how to do build businesses in areas where they're inclined and interested in than studying courses that has no correlation with what they end up doing most times after school?
It's a solution using traditional Igbo methods that's creating sustainable means of livelihood and reducing poverty among over 50% of Nigeria's population who are surviving below $1 per day. Paulum David, African Matters, Abuja.
Still in Nigeria, the world's largest producer of cassava, a plant whose starch is an ingredient in an array of products, from soups to toothpaste. But despite its market share, the country is not reaping the full economic potential of the cassava plant. Claire Herriot has more.
At this factory in Nigeria's largest city, Lagos, tubes of toothpaste are being deposited along the production line. One of the major ingredients is sorbitol, a naturally occurring sweetener synthetically extracted from the cassava plant. Nigeria is the world's leading producer of cassava, contributing around 1/5 of total global output in 2018. Nigeria's agricultural cassava exports have a potential value of $2.98 billion. But supply has been unable to meet demand. For cassava starch alone, the demand gap is more than 290,000 metric tons. The reason for the gap is partly the rudimentary methods of production. It's also highly perishable. Farmers often fear cassava will spoil before they get it to market. Busari Kasali is one farmer with a reliable buyer.
We are now very confident. We can plant as much as we would like because we won't have any problem selling it. We know where to sell it.
His customer is the company founded by Oluyemisi Iranoye. Her factory extracts sorbitol from cassava. Around 10,000 cassava farmers supply the business. The plant is washed, blended and processed into starch. But they need more of it to meet demand.
We still don't have enough. We are still operating at about 55–60% today because of raw material. So raw material is a challenge. Farmers need to be properly funded for raw material to be produced at a level at which you can have increase our capacity to about 80%.
With enhanced farming techniques and regular training for farmers, Nigeria could get closer to exploiting fully its competitive advantage in the production of cassava. Claire Herriot, Africa Matters.
Autism remains a much ignored health issue across sub-Saharan Africa, especially in Nigeria. According to a 2020 U.S. National Institute of Health study, 3 out of 100 children in that country are diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, 3 times the world average. With no support from the state for such children, parents in Nigeria have taken matters into their own hands. Shoaib Hassan reports.
Pop music drives Christine Naji as she works on her canvas, her creations a tribute to her talent. But this 17-year-old is no ordinary teenager. She was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, ASD, at age 5, something her parents didn't know how to handle.
I've not actually heard of autism before. So I was thinking, there's something I can do and everything will be okay, and that process of thinking and assimilating it and trying to come to terms with it, I fell into a dark place in my life. I was depressed for a very long time. I was in denial.
Naji says the struggle to provide a normal life for Christine continued till about 2 years ago. That's when Christine, limited to life indoors due to the pandemic, was introduced to art.
Within 3 weeks into painting, Christine started talking, regained speech, regained composure, behavioral changes, confidence, self-awareness, and she got self-assurance. Her sense of self was phenomenal. Art really heals. When they say art is life, art is really life. So but what it did for me and what it was doing for Christine, it gave me respite. And I could now see, oh my goodness, there's actually a light at the end of the tunnel.
Christine's moment of change came with the help of an art teacher hired by her mother. Thousands of other autistic children in Nigeria are still searching for that moment. Experts say the solution doesn't always have to be niche and expensive.
A lot of our parents will complain that to get a specialist teacher is expensive. It's expensive because the materials that we use they are expensive. They are not just cheap things. A lot of us, we even improvise. We use the things that we have here. We improvise with some of the things some of us, we even do. We call carpenters to do some of our things for us. Improvising some of the materials that I've seen abroad.
Christine and her parents have now helped by holding painting events to help children living in slums in Lagos. Facilitators reach out to parents of children with ASD and teach easy solutions to help those with autism lead better lives. Shoaib Hassan, Africa Matters.
Nigeria is Africa's second largest oil producer after Angola, but millions of Nigerians rarely benefit from this abundant natural resource. In Takwa Bay, an island near Lagos, residents are reaping the benefits of another natural resource, as Bushra Gupta reports.
Africa's largest city, Lagos, is a well-known metropolis, but little is known about its hidden surfing culture. The city's Takwa Bay Island recently hosted Nigeria's National Surfing Festival, gathering many talented surfers to hang ten along the Atlantic coast.
I believe I will become a champion. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next month, but I believe one day, yes, and I believe in God, one day I will become a champion. I want to be like Kelly Skater, John Florence, Italo Florence, yeah, everyone. And I want to become like John also. I want to represent Nigeria, not only Nigeria, Africa itself.
However, the fishing community has suffered from oil tankers polluting the ocean for decades, and some were directly or indirectly involved in siphoning oil from pipelines. In January 2020, people here were accused of oil theft and faced mass evictions by the Nigerian army.
They demolish all our houses, almost all of our houses. So like they said, the problem is the pipeline vandalizer. They say too much fuel on this island, too much pipeline, everything. So they demolish our island.
3 years later, residents have slowly returned to Takwa Bay, but they have never fully recovered. The Nigerian Surfing Federation's president hopes that surfing will change things.
Some of them that are hopeless, that have nothing to do, that are frustrated, are beginning to develop hope and that they can, from suffering, become something positive in life. It takes them away from bad criminality, takes them away from drug abuse, takes them away from all manner of wrong vices in the society. This sort of suffering has offered them
a chance to surf their way to a better future. Bushra Göktaş, Africa Matters.
And on our Africa City profile this week, we explore Bauchi, a city in northeast Nigeria. Its Yankari Game Reserve offers the country's most developed wildlife park with a wide variety of animals, flora, and natural warm water springs. Let's take a look. And that's our show this week. Kindly share your thoughts and suggestions about the stories you've seen on this episode, or ideas on what you would like us to cover on Twitter using the hashtag #AfricaMatters. Feel free to reach out to me on my personal handle. It's @Adesewa Josh. You can watch this episode and more on YouTube. Just search Africa Matters TRT World. Like, comment, and share. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next week.